This is the comprehensive list of the worst parts, the hardest parts, the most difficult parts of owning a game store. You're gonna run out of money. That is pain. We were broke. We were screwed, in financial disarray. There's a lot of upside if this thing works, and that's the reason why you do it. Being your own boss, it's a very romantic concept, and owning a game store is something that you may dream about. Going out on your own is really exciting. And I opened and own 3 local game stores in Southern California called Kingslayer Games. I'm a sole owner, but I have an amazing team of about 26 folks right now, my wife including, and some that have worked with the company as long as 6 years. I'm going to cover the best parts of owning game stores in a future video, probably the very next video. And there are some great reasons to start a business and to go out on your own to start a game store. If you want to subscribe, most of the type of content I make is trading card game related, game store related, Kingslayer specific for our company. And if you want to watch that journey and see how that's going, stick around. I have been writing this video for a while. My goal is that if you're thinking of opening a game store, you're going to see, after watching this, you'll see the worst of it. You'll see the hardest parts, maybe what to expect in the deepest, darkest moments of the process, and have it be potentially a good warning and productive so you won't feel as blindsided or like you're completely alone, because it can be extremely lonely. You know, there are other content creators that talk about the industry in kind of a negative way, and I'm pretty positive, and I think I've been pretty optimistic. But there are times when it can be dark and tough, and I want folks to be prepared. So if you're thinking about coming in, I talk to a lot of future store owners and store owners in their first couple years, and I feel like this could be useful for that person. And maybe it's not useful for anyone else. Maybe the hobbyist, this is where you close the window and like this isn't even about cards. This isn't about Kingslayer. But if you're interested in knowing maybe the hardest parts or the worst parts of running a game store, we can get into that. It's really trendy for fitness YouTubers and business YouTubers to be like do the things that are difficult. And there's a good amount of truth to that. I mean, doing things that are difficult a lot of times it's the narrow path. It's going to have the best rewards, and that's you got to do the stuff that's the most difficult. And this is the stuff that's the most difficult. These things, these 8 things I have on this list here, this is it. I feel like I'm a subject matter expert here because I've done it 3 times now over the course of the last 10 years, most recently just a year and a half ago, and we're in the process of doing it again. So we're in the process of expanding our flagship store and opening a new site and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actively in the weeds of building game stores. It's what I've been doing for my professional career. So this is it. This is the pain. Let's get into it. You will have to suffer these if you want to open a game store. If you want to own a game store, these are coming. And maybe there's rare exceptions. And if you're like already wealthy and this is just for fun, there's some exceptions here. But I think for most of you watching this that are thinking about going out on your own to start your own business, you're going to suffer these. And some of these are required to have the good stuff. And the good stuff will come later. It's going to come. And I'm so optimistic and bullish. I think this is the best retail industry to get into. But I want to put the warnings out there. So here we go. The first one is debt management, the loan you can't afford, just general cash flow pain. Now, there will be a point in time. The question I get asked a lot is, how much money do I need to open a game store? And I think that varies. That varies wildly based on, are you going to keep your full-time job? Do you have, how large is the bank account? What's the size? What's the runway? There's a lot of things to look at there. No matter what, at some point in the first 6 months, 5 years, you're going to run out of money, and you're not going to be able to afford to pay yourself, and you're going to have to take out a loan to stay open. That is going to happen. And if you think, I have enough partners, I have deep enough pockets, we can solve enough of these issues without having to ask for money or to go to a bank to get a loan, that's going to go away. You are going to run out of money, or you'll have opportunities to acquire inventory, and you're going to need more capital to do that. So, and in the first 2 years of being open, getting loans for single digit interest rates is probably not going to happen unless you have a friends or family thing, and which I don't really recommend mixing business and family if you can help it. That is real pain. That is pain. I've shed tears. I've been on the floor. I've been looking at my brother-in-law who used to work with me. We had a whiteboard up on the wall, and we were trying to find ways to pivot and more cash flow, and trying to solve the problem of making payroll. And it is brutal. So you're gonna have to. You're really gonna. And there's a reason why this is number one. These aren't in any particular order necessarily, but this is the daily debt management, cash flow management, financing. This is a daily thing. Sometimes hourly. I'm looking at bank statements or cash flowing in and out, sales, and in relations to paying vendors, paying rent, paying payroll, all this stuff. That is, if you want to open your own game store for the rest of your life while that store is open, this is going to be an sometimes hourly thing that your brain will be occupied with. Because if you don't, it could be lights out, basically. So that's number one. Number two, wearing the mask, leading despite being underwater, or as the owner of the company, the game store is a place. It's a third space. Your customers are coming in, your staff is coming in because they enjoy working there, hopefully, and the community is coming there to get away from their jobs and from their home environment, which may not be great, and they're coming to you and your store because it's an escape for them. It oftentimes cannot be an escape for you because you are wearing the burden of this list and owning and operating a game store, and you have to put on that face of like, yeah, this is great. This is awesome. This is so great. I just spent $40,000 on payroll, and I don't know where I'm going to make the next $10K to make ends meet, or whatever the case could be. You'll be suffering this list and have to still wear the mask of like everything is great. And that is really hard because there'll be times where it's not great. We were in year 4, year 5, still only had one location, and we had an event. It was the Kingslayer Invitational. I can't remember if it was the season 1 or season 2. We had a $2,000 cash prize for this invitational, and it was a 6-month, I believe it was 6-month queuing period, an internal tournament we did for Magic. And we got to the invitational event, which was a $2,000 cash prizing, and we were broke. So 6 months we had nobody knew this. Community didn't know. I think I kind of kept that all to myself. I didn't have enough money for that event. I had to go. I had to take money out of my personal checking account. I had to hope that we sold enough that day. Like I remember being at the register, seeing how much cash was coming in because I needed to give it all back to this prizing event that was it was upside down, and it was great. It really built, that event really built what Kingslayer was at that time. It was really important pre-COVID that we were really paying attention to competitive Magic. It was the core of who we were. It was our identity. And this event was paramount to our establishing our reputation in the industry and continuing to grow. Needless to say, nobody knew. We were screwed in financial disarray, and I wasn't managing the cash flow successfully or as well as like I wish I could have been. And the industry was different. Pokemon was not as popular, if at all. Boxes were selling for like $80. There wasn't a lot of good going on in the industry at that point in time. And you have to be able to lead and smile for social media and all that kind of stuff despite being underwater. Number 3, letting people go. And I've seen a lot of business folks say like, oh, firing people doesn't get any easier. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like I'm sure I'll be numb to it at some point. And having the experience of letting people go or terminating their employment, having more experience of that does make you better prepared to do that in the future. But it's still a very visceral, painful moment for someone that you care about, and you maybe once believed in them a little bit more than you do at that moment. But it could be, probably isn't going to be a friend in most circumstances. Maybe in the first year it is a friend, and that could make it more difficult. But terminating employment is very difficult, and it's something that you're trying to nail the timing of making sure you've given that person enough opportunity to change. but also not trying to have it be overstayed. And sometimes I think a lot of times people fire folks or terminate their employment too late, and they've already kind of impacted negatively maybe your other staff members or community members. So you will have to suffer that. You'll have to terminate people that you once believed in, and that is a failure of your own for making that judgment call incorrectly, or you're trying to process that, and you hear some stuff when you're walking someone through that experience of like or letting them know abruptly, you're no longer an employee at Kingslayer. It's a troubling moment. But if you're like, hey, I want to open a game store, this is going to be great, you're going to have to do this. And if you've never done that before, that's going to be really difficult. So can't really prepare for it. I was going to say be prepared. It's just be aware. Number 4 is pricing pressure versus profit growth. So this is difficult right now because with Pokemon and One Piece and some exclusive Magic items, there's a pressure to have products priced at MSRP, and there's pressure to sell things at market price for profitability to grow and to be able to pay your employees more, to be able to earn more money, to be able to make a living. And those decisions, we make those weekly for either for pre-order products or new release items. And that is painful. It is painful to try to nail this line where you can sell things to grow, to be able to support your team and support your staff and support your family, versus not pricing something so high to where the community has pitchforks and knives, and so that is a constant thing. It's not as painful as some of these other items, but be aware pricing items from the outside before you become a store owner feels like it's pretty easy, and then once you're in it, it's actually much more difficult. So number 5 is going to be stress and your personal, physical, mental health. As a sole owner, there's no one else that's watching out for your health and how your stress manifests and how you deal with that. And stress management is very difficult. For the first 8 years of the business being open, I was still drinking, and the first 5 or 6 years I was still using nicotine. So I was chewing or vaping or and then drinking at night to deal with stress when I was playing video games with my friends, and didn't drink at work. And I was the type of I had alcohol use disorder or however you want to identify that. People old days would call it alcoholism. Now it's called AUD. But I was drinking at night to deal with stress, and that was the only way I could disconnect from thinking about everything on this list. So the loan I couldn't afford, wearing this mask, firing people. The only way I could actually disconnect my brain from it was to drink and play games with my friends, and really drink or watch YouTube or drink and do anything. Drinking was involved. And that was the only time I could really disassociate from the pain and the stress of owning the business. And I knew it was a problem for a really, really long time until 2.5 years ago, I was like, I know I need to fix this sooner or later. And I was finally able to reach out and get some help for that. And now it's been 2 years sober. So that managing that, I think a lot. It's funny because I had met a lot of store owners that didn't drink, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. And it's like, okay, I get it, because it's a really easy trap to deal with stress. A lot of business owners too, I think, deal with trying to manage stress. And this is something, if you're like, I want to start a game store, this is all fun, I have a day job, I would think well, there's going to be a lot of pain here that you're going to have to. There's a lot of benefits and rewards, which we'll get into in a future video. But because there's so much stress and pain, you have to think about how you're going to process that. And maybe you're not thinking about that now. Maybe you're not going to. Your stress management works for the amount of stress that you have in your life at the moment. But if you become a sole owner or have partners, and you do potentially, think about how you manage stress in your life now. Are you managing it in a healthy way? I think a lot of people probably aren't, but maybe it's kind of minor things you're doing, whether it's exercise or what have you, that for the amount of stress you have now, the stress is going to go through the roof. And the easy thing to do is to throw back a couple drinks at night or smoke a little. And that's fun fact. You do that for too long and you realize, things are going to start falling apart, whether that's health or relationships and all that kind of stuff. So how you're going to manage your stress, physical and mental health is really important. Next up, number 6, firing community members. This one does get easier the more you do it, because it's not the same as an employee where you're really believing in them. You're giving them, there's a relationship between their work and money, and it's this partnership that you have with your employees. And it's a an actual contract, and then this observable metrics that you're going through with an employee. With a community member, the contract is different. We have a code of conduct at Kingslayer that community members have to meet up. They have to measure up to, and if they don't measure up to it, you have one clear conversation with them. Hey, you're not meeting our community guidelines. You need to meet our community guidelines. And if they fail that a second time, it's just, remember that conversation we had where you had to meet our community guidelines? Well, you don't, and now you can't. I'm sorry, you can't play here anymore. You can't show up. You can't buy, whatever whatever the restrictions are. That one is really hard the first time. At least for me, it was difficult the first time. Second time a little bit easier. Third time a little bit easier. And now it's a breeze. But it is hard for my store managers to do that or to think about having that conversation because they haven't done it before. I do think that's one that gets easier with time. Out of everything on this list, some of them get easier with time, but specifically letting go of community members does, just because it's kind of a zero sum, like yes or no, black and white. Are you good for the community? Are you not good for the community? And then you just make that call. Number 7, this goes back to number 1. Maybe it's paired with number 1 about finances, but failure equals financial ruin is something that is on my mind a lot. And in the form of bankruptcy, right? Debt that you've got to carry, your credit score is torched. There's been times the company's set up as an LLC now, but it was a sole proprietorship for the first 5 years. But even now, like if we're stuck in a major financial jam, like I'm going to pull money out of my personal assets, like whatever I have to do to make it work. And if you run out of runway and you don't have enough, you can't solve these financial issues. You're gonna go into bankruptcy, and that's something that's gonna damage your financial path for your whole life. So that's something that your brain has to live with, and you've got to look at the positives of this, and those have to outweigh. And the last one, number 8, is kind of a combination of all these things, but you are alone. Your spouse will not be able to understand the level of financial stress and pain that you're going through. My wife works for Kingslayer full time, and she does her absolute best. She tries, but your mind is completely occupied with the company really forever. Like going back to number 1, like debt management, cash flow, your mind is always occupied. You may be at the soccer game for your kids. You may be, at, Christmas dinner with your family or whatever. In the back of your mind, always running like a system process. If you're, Windows fan, there's always that background process that's thinking like, where are we at? Where are we at? And I have a cash flow document I use so I can like keep up on that. And I have ways of managing this. And it's like, I remember as a kid, when I had my first debit card, there was that period of time where you're like swiping your card just to see if there's any money left, like I hope it's fine. Like you can't really do that in this line of work. But the loneliness is like dense at times. And even my COO at Kingslayer, his name's Andrew. A lot of you guys probably met him at the shops. He plays a lot of card games. He's been here for 6 years. My brother-in-law worked for me for the first 5 years of the company. And they're there. They're observing everything, and they're great friends and excellent employees and leaders at the company. But at the end of the day, when it's like, man, do we have enough to make this work? It's like, it's all on you. It's all on the owner to make that work financially. And you got to take some big risks. You have to take out we've had to take out big loans at times because it was in the best interest of the company to increase our assets in the building, because we were going to be able to turn that inventory 3, 4, 5 times before we had to pay that loan back. And only you can take that risk. Only the sole owner. And you are alone on that island, and you have a lot to gain. You do have, there's a lot of upside if this thing works. And that's the reason why you do it. That's the reason why you go through all this, maybe red tape, or the reason why you go through all this pain and suffering is because the hardest things have the highest payout. have the highest reward. And that's why, I came from a sales background before opening Kingslayer, and I like the narrow path because I like the hard work, because I don't like having a ceiling on my earnings. And I'm willing to suffer these 8 things to achieve that. But yeah, I wanted to share this. I wanted to share, what I think the truly hardest parts are. And you might have noticed I haven't really talked about product. I haven't talked about organized play. I haven't talked, about a lot of things that are really the details of this industry in particular. So this might apply to other industries too. But yeah, I wanted you to know. I wanted you to be prepared for maybe some of the pain in this journey. And in the next episode here, we're going to talk about the best parts. And I think for me, they're worth it. And appreciate the time. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry for the little Debbie Downer episode today, but be prepared. Be prepared. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, y'all. Have a great day.